Yeah.
That's great for
So
next.
John Forsland, so maybe some of the people have seen John do the national games for NBC for the last couple of years, and he did the Carolina Hurricanes, and he did the Whalers before that. John was doing games in Springfield, Massachusetts, and during the time I was at ESPN, I worked in Springfield. We did a game together when Fredericton still had a team in the American Hockey League. That if you do a search for Springfield Fredericton brawl, it's John doing play-by-play and me doing color. This fight went on for about 20 minutes. It was, I mean, and I saw a lot of brawls in New Haven, especially when New Haven had an Eastern Hockey League team in the late 60s, 1970, when the league was really rough and tough. This one rivaled that. So anybody get a chance. Springfield Fredericton brawl. It's 1987, I believe. And this thing was a pretty good one. Ron Tugnut, who later played in the NHL, goaltender, he was the goalie for Fredericton. And a guy named Marty Wakeland was the goalie for Springfield. He really beat him pretty badly. And every once in a while, Marty and I are on Facebook together. I'll say, I think he just threw another punch at Tugnut because he beat him pretty decisively. So, great memories, Brandon.
How about the New York Islanders experiences with you?
So when I worked at ESPN, again, I was a producer behind the scenes, and during that great run that the Islanders had when they won 4 straight cups, and the last one they beat Edmonton, and the clinching game was at the Nassau Coliseum in New York, and I remember them letting us onto the ice afterward to do interviews. And every once in a while, I'll see video of that. I'm looking to try to see myself and the crew that I was part of. And back then, cowboy boots were big. So I had cowboy boots, walking along the ice in cowboy boots, and then doing the locker rooms after the game. It was just such a fun time and great to be around. And then the Oilers dethroned them the next year. But to be around those great Islanders teams. Now, as someone who grew up a Rangers fan, I was not very fond of the Islanders. And don't forget, I'm not on the air yet at that point. I'm a producer. So when you're on the air, you have to be objective. So I wasn't so objective behind the scenes there. And I remember having to get some of the Islanders players for interviews and having to introduce myself and shake their hands. And inside, I'm like, yeah, because they beat my Rangers all the time. So, but those are great teams to be around, in that era. And then watching the young Edmonton team. And I remember we did an interview with Edmonton had a defenseman named Lee Fogelin. And he said, what we learned in losing to the Islanders was you had to be able to turn the other cheek. In other words, if they slashed you or something, don't retaliate. Because oftentimes, as a player, right? They miss the first one, they get the retaliation, right? And you're shorthanded now, where if you just turn the other cheek, maybe they get the call on them and not both of you going off or whatever. So it was interesting. I remember him just using that that phrase that sometimes you have to lose, right, at that level before you're ready to win. You have to learn how to win. And I think those Edmonton teams did that. The Pistons in basketball lost to the great Bulls teams of Jordan, but at some point they learned how to win, and then it was their turn and their time. And I think a lot of these things you can learn in life, especially today, where you have to be. It's hard to be specialized in something that know how to do a lot of things. You were a skilled player, right? But a lot of the skilled players at Quinnipiac were also penalty killers. And that's why Quinnipiac scored a lot of shorthanded goals, because you guys knew how to defend, but man, in a second, you're off the other way. And I think if you use that analogy, especially today, and probably all businesses, but what I've seen in television, know how to do a variety of things. And I think if you take that mindset into life, in your career, you'll do better because you can do a variety of things. So if you were just a skilled player, you didn't get as much ice time because you probably weren't, maybe you were on the power play, but you didn't kill penalties. But you guys killed penalties too. And, so you made yourself more valuable. And that's I think a lesson you can use in everyday life as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And in relating to the younger kids that are watching here is, with versatility, basically, I like to coach these kids. The forwards, they need to know how to play on
Mhm.
defense. The defense need to know how to play forward. They need to know all positions, the left wing, center, right wing, left defense, right defense. They got to know all that,
Absolutely.
because later on when they play at these higher levels, there's always going to be someone better. The odds of someone being better and having a spot, or even
Mhm.
older, they're going to have to know
Yeah.
how play in those situations that they're put in. And if they're not able to do that, perform, or know how to play it, there's just going to be another player that will take their spot, and they'll probably
Mhm.
either be on the bench watching, or they'll be up in the stands as a scratch,
That's right.
because they can
And let
perform.
me tilt this down just in a tribute to you. I wore a Quinnipiac hockey shirt here in tribute. But you were one of the building blocks of that program. And the teams that went to the Frozen Four and the national championship games after you, for people there for them like yourselves in building that program. You were on the teams that now became nationally ranked. That was unheard of before that. So it's great to see. And I've had the good fortune of watching the building of that program, the building again, the building of the basketball programs at the University of Connecticut. Yale, in some ways too. I went to Yale games when I played high school hockey, and I saw their current coach, Keith Elaine, who's been there a long time now, as a player, and then watching them beat Quinnipiac in the national championship game. As a broadcaster, even though, and I was covering the game for a Connecticut TV station, so in that role, I'm not favoring Quinnipiac or Yale. Now, in my heart, I've been around the Quinnipiac program a lot. So that was kind of tough. And Quinnipiac had beaten them 3 times during the regular season, including the kind of the third place game in the conference tournament. And was Quinnipiac a better team than Yale? Absolutely. Was Yale a better team that night? Absolutely. They had a goalie, this kid Jeff Malcolm, that stood on his head on his birthday, in fact, that night. And
Wow.
it was tough. It was really tough. I mean, Quinnipiac was devastated after that game. Now, the second time they made it, they got beat by a better team. So it's weird. They were the better team and lost, and they were not the better team and lost. But they'll be back again. It's a great program. You're an alum to not only a tremendous school, but a great hockey program.